I fell asleep and I heard a TV commercial basically saying, Bookingsafrica.com, the number one online platform for, service providers across Africa. So I remember literally jumping out of my sleep, finally, this website would be perfect for my production company so that we can use them for we had a current job going on where I needed a location. And I was like, oh, great, let me go onto the website to see if I can find this location that I need. And literally, I woke up and my TV was off. And I thought, wait, did NEPA take light or what's going on? And I was like, okay, there's still lights. I don't know what's happening, but let me just check. I remember the name of the website and I went bookingsafrica.com and the website's available to purchase. And I was like, okay, did I spell it wrong? Bookingafrica.com, bookings/africa.com, because I remember Bookends Africa and I went through all different ways of Bookends Africa and the domain didn't exist. So I thought, okay, do you know what? I'm just going to buy the domain name.
My father told me life is not a bit.
This is Origins Africa podcast, where we explore the origin stories of people who have made and are making their dreams come true, asking the what, the when, the how, and the why. I'm Osheye, and on this episode, the concluding part of our chat with Fadé Ogunro, we'll explore Fadé starting a new life in Nigeria after her return from the UK. Fadé will talk about the birth and growth of Film Factory, a multi-award video production company she co-founded with her brother in 2011. She'll also talk about her latest venture, Bookends Africa, a Pan-African on-demand digital marketplace for the entertainment, media, and lifestyle industries. Fadé is the founder and CEO of Bookends Africa. This interview was recorded in May 2021. In 2010, Fadé decided to take a break from her work at Google in the UK and explore her curiosity by returning to Nigeria. Now, for many people, moving back home isn't as simple as booking a plane ticket and waving goodbye to your adopted home country. It can take quite a bit of time and work to reintegrate back into the country, community, and life, regardless of whether you've been away for 6 years or 6 months. And Fadé had lived in the UK for over 10 years, since she was about 7 years old. So what was returning to Lagos in Nigeria like for Fadé?
It wasn't bad, actually, because I think luckily for me, because I've always been back and forth every summer and every Christmas, I'd either be in Nigeria once a year. So, and my dad was very one of those who'd bring his work home. So I could come home and one day, we're filming in my house, or, one weekend we'll all go into one of his clients' houses. So I always, and then, every time, Monday to Friday, I'm on holiday here, he's still going to work. So I'd literally go to his office and sometimes I'll work out of his office, helping him develop scripts. I'll just go on set just to see what projects they're working on. So I kind of always, because a lot of my father's friends are in media. So I use, for example, Denola Gray, who's a social media influencer in Nigeria. His dad is a very popular music composer and scorer for commercials and for movies and things like that. My dad and Denola Gray have been very good friends. The owner of TBWA ad agency is my dad's very good friend. The owner of Rosabelle is actually my uncle. The owner, so all the me, STB McCann, Sachi and Sachi, these were all the circle of friends that we had. So for me, it wasn't I kind of understood. It's easy to say you understand the business, but I wasn't too shocked because when they were having issues or when things would go wrong or the generator would not come on set or you were dead, I kind of had experienced that by just hanging around all our family friends and my dad's colleagues and stuff like that. So my dad was one of those he'd get us involved in the work, so from a very young age. I remember the first time I was on set, I was probably 5. Yeah, so that's my first memory of being on set. So from the front end to the back end, when they're creating the scripts and they're in like their little creative war room. I could be 8 years old on a summer holiday, but I'll go to work with my dad and I'll be in that creative war room with them as they're coming up with concepts and scriptings and all of that. Or sometimes even when people are coming to pitch to my dad, for whatever it is, for production jobs and whatever, I'd also sit there and I'd also watch how people would pitch and how he would interrogate and ask questions and rebuttal and buttress. And so that boardroom environment was never something that I was that was unfamiliar to me,
I see.
For me, it was more about working with the mindset of people that were different to me. I find that, I don't want to seem derogatory, but when there's a certain level of exposure when we're talking about, living in a country that's majority in poverty, that's below the poverty line. There's a certain lack of exposure that those people are going to have. But that workforce is who you need to liaise with on a day-to-day basis for things to move.
True.
So it was that bridge between my experience, understanding their experience, and trying to communicate so they can comprehend and deliver. If you're trying to communicate, if you see in color and you're trying to communicate to someone who sees in black and white, you have to position your statement a little bit clearer than you might have to almost like overanalyze or over-explain. Or you have to just figure out how to maneuver and position your communication so that they're able to comprehend it better. Because if you have some red roses, some yellow sunflowers, and maybe some white lilies, and you tell somebody who sees them black and white, get me the yellow flowers, they wouldn't, and they come and give you the rose, a red rose, you can't get upset because they only see black and white.
True.
So it might have to position my statement and say, there are 3 roses over there, the one in the middle, the one on the left, the one on the right. Get me the second rose in the middle. So that way you're not necessarily describing it on color, which they don't see. You can describe it based on number, which they understand better. Yeah, I did. It was very frustrating because I've always hired staff in Nigeria. When I moved to Nigeria in 2010 and I opened up Film Factory Productions in 2011. So I've been an employer since 2011 in Nigeria. And it was just frustrating because I'd literally say, give me the red flower, and they'll come back with a yellow sunflower. And I'm looking at them like, are you taking the piss? You don't understand me, or what exactly is the issue here? Like, why would you do something that's I blatantly know the answer to, or it's quite, in my eyes, is an obvious action, and you still get it wrong. I couldn't understand how something simple as get me the red rose, you could mistake that for a yellow sunflower. So that transition of communication or translation, lost in translation, I really had to skewer my communication skills and adapt my communication skills, not necessarily to dumb it down, but just to understand.
Did you come to the realization yourself?
Not as reactive.
Or did you need to speak with someone, or did you read up on it?
No, I'm naturally a solution provider, so I never like to complain about things. I always like to think of what can I do? So I started looking at people's behavior patterns, and then I see that they did something that I wouldn't understand, or I would just see as irrational or just illogical. I'd actually take time to sit there and I want them to break it down to me. Like, what was your thought process? So I wouldn't tell them that this is the first few instances, I'd be like, why would you bring me a yellow sunflower? I told you it was a red rose. And, I'd become a little bit more agitated. But after a while, I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. Like, I can't be, getting agitated every single scenario. Let me understand why they bring in me the yellow sunflower, so that they don't understand colors. So I needed to understand what it was. So I'd sit down with them. I say, okay, right. When I asked you to bring me this, I wanted a red rose, you brought me this. So explain to me, out of all the options of flowers that are here, why did you pick this one? What did you understand that made you choose this one? Then I'll get to the bottom of it, which is maybe they don't understand colors. And I'm like, right, okay, your issues is you don't understand colors, no problem. Now I know when I'm describing something to you, I know how to position and readjust the communication so you can now understand it better. And one person's issue may not be another person's issue. So it was quite interesting just becoming a bit more patient in just understanding the society that I'm now in. And like I said, I'm naturally a non-conformist, but at the same time, if you need to, if you understand how the society does work, you can break the laws. So before you can break a law, you need to understand the law.
Sure.
That's the way I see it. So it took me a while to even understand the law. And in me understanding the law, it might look like as if I was trying to conform, but it really wasn't. It was me trying to say, okay, how can I be an individual even in this society where conformism is and collective thinking is the norm and is the way forward? I still need them to be on my side as an individual so they can't alienate me for being too different from them. So I needed to see, okay, what is it? Where's the balance? So yeah, it's a bit of psychological, but yeah, but it's been interesting. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning. Everybody will always tell you, if you're an employer, everybody will tell you that hiring staff in Nigeria is one of the most stressful things you can do. Competent staff they're quite rare. And I also blame that to the natural education system and curriculum that we have here, as well as culture, because it encourages lack of initiative, lack of critical thinking. Don't speak back to your elders. Do as I say, not as I do. So why? You shouldn't ask why, just do it. Why do I need to go to bed at this time? Hey, why are you asking questions? You're rude. You're talking back to your father. So these are normal questions that I was allowed to ask as a kid. Or when you go to school over here in Nigeria, they teach you to cram. So you're not necessarily learning to understand, you're just learning to pass. Sure. So that's why they're good at the theory part of it, but they're not necessarily good at the practical side of it because they haven't had any chance to actually explore that side, that talent that they have. So I realized that, okay, if this is the way that they've been thinking and the way they've been brought up since they were a child, I'm not going to change that overnight. Because to change the way someone learns and to change their mindset and to change consumer behavior takes a long time. So you kind of have to understand, okay, this is what they've been taught. This is how they behave. So how can I still extract the most value from them that would enable my goals rather than trying to spend so much time trying to teach them? So you have to then weed out the ones that are still flexible enough to be not necessarily manipulated, but to be able to be adapt and to meander through different roles and I'm willing to learn something different. There are people that still have that, and I look for people who are curious, who are hungry, who can say, yes, everything that I've taught, I'm going to put it to the side and I'm going to not be afraid to try something new, and I'm going to ask questions. So there's certain ways that I engage with my staff where I ask open-ended questions and everybody has to give their own answer, and I never tell you if you're right or wrong. It's just literally, what's your opinion on this? It's like the Moses, Jesus and Muhammad situation. Hypothetically speaking, what would you do if this came along? And I want to see how everybody's brain starts to think, because when there's no right or wrong answer, you're teaching them to just to think and not to be afraid to think outside of the box and to come up with something wild, like a new future if this was our past. So yeah, those are the things that I still try to do with certain members of my team to groom them.
Okay, I heard you say. So whilst you were at Google, after a couple of years, you started to realize perhaps it wasn't aligned to where you wanted to go, and then you returned to Nigeria. So I'm curious, at that point, what were you looking out for? What goals or dreams did you have?
Like I said, growing up, I always thought that ultimately the success, the epitome of success was being an entrepreneur and owning your own business and or even your own legacy in that world. And I felt like Google was going to swallow that up. And also because I never really applied for Google, it was nothing that I'm super grateful that I was able to work for them. But I kind of fell into it. So just after a while, you just kind of think, okay, if I didn't get this opportunity, what would I do? Would I still be a fashion designer? Would I be a fashion journalist working for Vogue? Would I be like, what else could I actually really be? I know I have access to this job, but outside of it, what else could I explore? And that's literally what I wanted. I was quite curious to the unknown. When they say the grass is greener on the other side. So I was kind of like, okay, I've got this. I know I can get it now. I know I can always come back to it anytime that I want. So what else can the world offer me? outside of this. And yeah, I just wanted to explore something else because I just had this, like I said, like I'm still kind of, I'm big in individuality, and I'm big on entrepreneurship. And I just didn't know how that would play out working full time for Google, because literally you'll give your life and soul to them because it's really demanding. So I think at that stage, I just wanted to make sure that I was on the right path. And I thought, let me try something else just to make sure that if I don't enjoy it, because like I said, I've never been afraid to try something else. And people would have been like, a lot of my friends are like, you're leaving Google to move to Nigeria where you didn't even have a job.
Know, right?
All my friends thought I was mad. Everybody thought I was crazy. Like, you don't even have a job where you're going? I was like, nope, I'm just going to see how it goes. And that's that. And I'm fearless in that way because I always feel like I'll land on my feet, just like the baby who would always learn how to walk. No matter what, even if I stumble along the way, ultimately I will get on my feet. And that's just how I just keep on going.
But there was I guess was there a safety net of some sort, maybe some savings you did not work for a while? Or was it that you had nothing and then you took a leap?
No, I've always had savings. I've always, my parents made sure that we were very financially savvy growing up. For example, pocket money, we had to work for it. So I always understood the value of money. And even like my first car in London, my dad was like, okay, whatever you save up, I'll match it. So if you save up £1, I'll give you £1. If you save up £1,000, I'll give you £1,000. If you save up £10,000, I'll give you £10,000. So whatever you can work to save up, I'll match it. So I never looked out for handouts. I've never been the person that's just like, so even raising funding for me was quite difficult because I felt like, that's the first time where I'm going to get money and have to owe somebody, quote unquote, owe somebody, even though of course they own part of I've given them equity into the business. But I felt like that was daunting for me because it was the first time. I never even had a credit card because I'd never owed people. So that wasn't my lifestyle. I had savings, I had my money. And when I moved to Nigeria, my first job was a freelance journalist. I wrote for
PM News.
Everyone from PM, from Guardian, from, all the various newspapers,
so magazines. You returned you wrote to them that you were in the country and you'd like to be a columnist with them. Did it happen?
How did it happen? First of all, PM newspaper was run by Uncle Babafemi Ojudun, who was a former senator, but he used to run the PM newspaper, very close family friend. So once again, it's just at my house and he's just like, okay, you moved back doing a job or you've studied journalism, let me read something that you've done. Oh, you're great. Do you want your own article? Great, cool. And he gave me my own column.
This was
once again, it was just leveraging.
In Nigeria.
A couple of months, maybe within 2 months.
Okay, great. Leveraging relationship.
So yeah, within 2 months, I was just leveraging relationships of like family friends and my dad's colleagues or acquaintances and just, any uncle or auntie that would come to my house. Auntie, this is what I do. How can you help me? How can I help you? Can I come and work in your office once a week? Whatever it was. Even down to, and my first radio station was Radio Continental. The MD at the time was also a family friend. Then even Beat FM, Uncle Crystal Bussy, who owns Beat FM, also a family friend. So these were the network then the access to people that we have. That my family had access to, open doors. So, and then, even if I couldn't work for anyone, my dad already said I could come and work in his advertising agency. And of course, but I didn't want to work for my dad. I didn't want to start my own legacy, piggybacking off of my dad and feeling like, oh, you're able to just, get your foot into the industry because of your so-and-so's child. I didn't want that. I wanted to start my own thing and have success and merit. Yes, you can open the doors to other companies, whether it's a newspaper or a radio station or a TV station or whatever else. You can open those doors, but I'm the one that actually has to do the work. I felt like if I was working in his company, it'd be easy for me to just get away with just doing nothing and still getting paid. And I just didn't want that. I actually wanted to merit on my own. So yeah, those are my first few jobs. And then the subsequent newspapers were, then meeting other people. So within a few other months, I met a lady called Kiki Kamanu, who's a designer. But at the time, she was the head editor for... There was a newspaper at the time called Next 234. Next 234 had a weekly lifestyle magazine called Elan magazine, and Kiki Kamanu who's a designer. She was also I believe the creative director or the editor of that magazine. So I met up with her just on a fashion thing. I think I was shooting a music video, I was styling it, and I was producing a music video, and I was also styling it because I was trying to save money.
For Film Factory?
I'm not even sure who it was for.
Okay.
Maybe it was for Film Factory. I'm not sure. It was quite early on.
Okay.
I met her and told her, I write for other newspapers and publications from the UK. She read a few of them. She loved it. So I started writing for Elan, freelancing. Then my work got noticed by some of the newspaper guys because I was able to write lifestyle fashion pieces for the magazine, but they also read some of my serious things. So I was able to be published in Next 2, 3, 4. Then I'd met the Ibru family. So I started writing for The Guardian now and again. Yeah, so literally I just leveraged my network.
In 2011, Fadé co-founded Film Factory, a multi-award-winning video production company, together with her brother, Fadé Ogunro. They've produced TV adverts and documentaries for multinationals such as General Electric, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, and MTN, as well as produced music videos for some of our favorite Nigerian artists, including Wizkid and D'banj. But how did that happen?
To be honest, it was almost like an extension of what my brother had already been doing in the UK. So Chasson already had his own production company. The SDKN, he had Mastermind Productions and he had SDKN Productions. I'd been working with him for years as a producer, just, helping him out whenever I could with my studies and work or whatever. So I was in Nigeria. Of course, I moved to Nigeria, but Chasson's always lived in the UK, but he'd always come to Nigeria on holiday or just to work and then shoot a couple productions and then leave. So me, him and my dad in the living room one day, we were just sitting down brainstorming, and I was just like, okay, we could have a production company in Nigeria, but how would it work without him being on ground, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, well, I know enough about the production industry to be able to run the business, even when Chasson's not here. So what I could do is schedule all the meetings, all the productions. And then whenever we have a job, I'll make sure that he comes and just does everything back to back. So he can spend 3 weeks in Nigeria and shoot 6 different productions. And then he'll leave, and then he wouldn't have to come back for another month and a half or 2 months. And then he'll come back again for another 2 weeks. So that was kind of how we wanted it, because my dad was also doing a lot of productions, and he was just like, if we had a registered production house, then he could give us the entire work to also then produce that.
Oh, okay.
And then if we get local content, then we can then also have a local show reel. Because the problem that we were facing when I moved to Nigeria was all our show reel, my brother and I, our production show reel, was based on international clientele. Unfortunately, a lot of Nigerian companies didn't believe that we were the ones that produced the content, because we had stuff like Fanta, Coca-Cola, but let's say for a Polish Fanta, a Polish Fanta commercial, or maybe a Spanish Sprite commercial, and they were looking at us like, oh, you guys just went on YouTube and downloaded these videos and trying to sell it to us.
Oh,
we want to see something local. Yeah, they want to see something local, because the media entertainment industry is so small here. So if you call the MD of Coca-Cola here, he can speak to the MD of whichever bank or whichever FMCG, and they can be like, oh, that's the company that did it for us. So the Nigerians are like, oh, but who did it? Who is their father? Who is their everybody? They want kind of like that accountability, and they want to be able to trace to know who did it. So that hindered us initially, and we thought, okay, so the best thing we need to do is have a local company that is registered locally, and then we need to start sourcing local clients so we can then build our local show reel. So the quickest way to be able to get local clients is, of course, shoot stuff for my dad. So we started building our show reel through him. Then, of course, we had all the music video artists from your D'banj, then the entire Mo hits. So slowly we started having a nice, robust show reel between corporate jobs and then your music videos and your more heavy entertainment driven.
I think I read that it was you, when Film Factory started, the need for artists, and that was what led you to, I think, becoming an OAP.
Yeah, pretty much. So I first joined Radio Continental. That was a fluke. My family house was on the mainland, and Radio Continental was about 10, 15 minutes drive from my house. So it was really quick for me to get there. So when I went to TV Continental at first to actually provide services. This is before Film Factory. So it's because Film Factory is 2011. So this is 2010 still.
Okay.
So I approached TV Continental and I wanted to produce potentially if there was any gaps or what sort of content I could produce for them. I wanted to see what the studio was like, what equipment they used. Because once again, I said like the MD was my Popsy's friend. So I was like, okay, let me see how with my expertise and experience and skills, how I could, work with these guys. So I went there and I wasn't really, of course, they've changed the entire facilities now. But back then in 2010, it was, for lack of a better word, I'd probably say a bit archaic. And I wasn't comfortable because I didn't even know the equipment, and their style of work was just something that I hadn't experienced before. So it felt like going back in time. So I left there a little bit disheartened, like, okay, I'm not going to get to work with this production company. And as I was leaving, I bumped into my other friend, who is Uncle Femi Showolu, who was actually the programs director for Radio Continental. And he's also a very popular, he's got a very famous voice as well. So he's like the voice of Gulda and Gulda Ultimate Search. And so everybody knows Uncle Femi's voice in Nigeria. Like he's a very popular, like his voice is just really popular, whether it's on radio or on ads and all the iconic brands. So I was like, oh, Uncle Femi, what are you doing here? He's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I haven't seen you in years. How's the family? He's like, oh, he actually works as the head of programs or the head of, he basically was the head of Radio Continental. So we're just catching up. How am I finding Nigeria? And he's like, you've got a really good voice. Have you ever thought about being on radio? And I was like, no, not really. Like I've never even heard my own voice, maybe like on a voicemail, but I didn't even think it was that attractive. So not really. And I had now my English accent isn't even as strong anymore. Like I had a really strong English accent and I spoke really fast.
That was a challenge.
So even like my major challenge was like saying Nigerian names because I didn't have the intonation. I hadn't, I wasn't familiar with like Igbo names and I didn't know who's who, whether it's Senator this person, Governor this person. I had no clue who anybody was. So I didn't want to go on air and start butchering like the president's name or something, or butchering the senator's name and then people coming for me. So I was really like anxious about that. But I overcame that, and he made me once again jump into the deep water, which is every day I'd go to the radio station and literally he'd make me read the newspaper headlines, and I'd of course crucify some names, but within a few days I got into the swing of things. So yeah, he kind of offered me an opportunity, and I was just like, okay, well, I'm still looking for other full-time things to do. And at that point, I was actually going to other banks and other telcos, and I was trying to offer them my SEO services. When I moved to Nigeria, I went online to try and open up a bank, and I thought, all right, I'm a graduate. There might be, because in the UK, there are a lot of specific graduate schemes that banks do. So maybe like a no interest, or if you open up a savings account as a graduate, they might give you like a double figure interest. So I went online and I was trying to find out, okay, what are the best banks for graduates in Nigeria, or what are the most popular banks or whatever. So I was doing my Google search, and all the keywords that I'll put in, I found that majority of the banks were not appearing on the first page. Because imagine if you don't know the name of any bank, you just come to Nigeria and you're just like, okay, the best bank for a graduate student, a student graduate or something. You don't put in the name of any bank. You'd expect that bank websites would show up with the highlights of their offering for students. I'm seeing like maybe like a Linda Ikeji, All Niger, Bella Niger, like all the different blogs or whatever who just written about banks. And of course, I knew that meant that the SEOs were wrong. And the SEOs needed help so that they could actually appear on the first page of Google. So I'm going around telling people, okay, this is how you advertise yourself. And so on Google, this is the importance of it. This is the process of pay-per-click ads. And they were very traditional. No. If it's not a radio jingle or a billboard or advert in the newspaper, we're not interested. So whilst I was still trying to find my feet doing that, I told Uncle Femi on radio that I only was available to work Saturday and Sunday. Or was it Friday and Saturday or something? Yeah, it was just Friday and Saturday. So I shadowed him for about 2-3 weeks. And after that, I had my own radio show every Friday, Saturday. But so whilst I was I was doing that. And then we decided to open up Film Factory. And then I realized that, okay, if that's the case and I'm going to shoot a lot of music videos, I need to go to the radio station that a lot of artists were flocking to, because it would make sourcing your segment, your market segment, your target audience, your target market of your target of clientele. It's easy if they come to you. So you need to find out where to go and find them. So I realized that, okay, artists go on radio because they need radio presenters to play their music. So it's better for me to go and work for a radio station that artists want to go to. And at the time, Beat FM was the hottest radio station in Nigeria. And luckily, my dad friends owned it, but I didn't even get it through him necessarily. I was actually headhunted. My radio station on Radio Continental used to trend, and it used to trend on the weekends and above Beat FM.
What was the program about?
What was it? It was just very light, just music. It was called Club Express. I had an alter ego. And I was like this dumb blonde girl who was on holiday in Nigeria, and she didn't know anybody. And she liked to drink and she liked to party. So you'd always bump into her at the club. So at this club, we then had celebrities at this club, but she didn't know who the celebrities were. So she then end up asking them like really absurd questions that would just like almost make them embarrassed. So, asking Two-Face, like when I met him, like what's his favorite brand of condom and why he clearly doesn't use it. So things like that, like just, and then, are you an underwear or thongs kind of guy? Just really ridiculous things then I'd get the audience to call, and they too had to ask like ridiculous questions. So, and it was my way of actually getting to break the ice and know the artist. So that show became really popular. And then I'd do a call out. So I'd say, this is Fadé on Radio Continental. I'm on holiday here. I'm a radio presenter and I want to get to meet some artists. So if you're an artist who's in the top 10 charts of the Nigerian charts, come over to the station right now. I've got alcohol. This is Club Express. We're going to turn up. Or I said, no. The only entrance fee to come to Club Express is you need to bring a bottle. And I tell you no lie, MI, Jesse Jaggs, Show Them Cam, Two-Face, Dr. Sid, LD, Goldie. People would just show up and they were just like, we just were tuning in and we just heard this random British girl saying, yo, come to the club, bring a bottle of wine, bring a bottle of Henny, like, let's turn up. And they're like, is she for real? And people were actually curious, like, nah, this can't be real. They wanted to come and see, like, is somebody really on the radio just saying, come and party with me for real? And live, I'd be like, yay, guess who's coming to the club tonight? So yeah, it became like just like, yeah, Club Express. So it became really fun, really popular. Yeah, I did. Oh yeah, of course. Okay. Because I came up with the entire theme myself. So it was really based on, like, it wasn't my personality to say, but I had an alter ego personality, but I felt like it felt to the context because it's how I actually felt. I kind of felt like this fish out of water in a new environment, in a new society, and trying to fit in. And I might ask some silly questions that people might expect you to know, or some questions that people would never ask. But my personality being the nonconformist, I would want to know these questions. So why not? Rather than people attributed to Fadé herself, people attributed to this Fadé's character. But really and truly, it's actually what Fadé wanted to know. But that way, you're not necessarily blaming it on me. It's just kind of like, no, it's the character that she plays on the weekends, the club girl, the dumb blonde girl, and like you'd ask me some questions. And I was like a Jessica Simpson, like, what's tuna? Is it like chicken of the sea? I'll just say some really stupid things like, yeah.
Like you were meeting
so a really dumb blonde character.
All right.
So yeah, I was meeting a lot of artists, and a lot of artists would always say, because the main artists, those artists were just fluke. They were just, oh, by the way, and Radio Continental wasn't a sought after radio station that the top artists would go to do their media rounds.
Okay.
And when you're talking about brand positioning, so when you want your, I don't know, the WizKids, your Tiwas, your Davidos, when they're doing their media rounds, Radio Continental isn't one of the first radio stations they think of. In fact, I was the first person to bring Two-Face onto Radio Continental.
Oh, wow.
They said, we've been trying for 7 years to get an interview with Radio Continental. If the artists don't rate the radio station, then they have no need to go there. So they're going to go for the popular ones, your Cool FM, your Rhythm FM, your Beat FM, your whatever, So they already had those that, were seen as like your top 5 that all the artists will go to. So I was fine to stay in Radio Continental. I really didn't mind. But for me, it would have been harder to gain access to the top tier artists that I wanted to get through to. And a lot of the artists were living on the island at the time. So them coming for interviews on the mainland and in the middle of the night at night time as well. on a Friday night. They already want to turn up on the island. So just those, like I said, you just have to understand your segmented target audience. And based on what the goal that I wanted, the clientele that I wanted to shoot their content weren't the clientele that would be attracted to Radio Continental. They were the clientele that are attracted to Beat FM. Even when I listen to the ads that are being played on Beat FM as opposed to the ads that were being played on Radio Continental, the quality of the clientele is different. So even if I wanted to shoot the radio, if I wanted to produce the radio jingles or even film the adverts for these clientele, I would have more access to them from Beat FM than I would at Radio Continental. So they were able to open doors. It was a platform because a lot of their clientele will also sponsor. So the way they sponsor an event, and then that way Beat FM is automatically attending this event or that event. So I'll be at GT Bank event and Beat FM have been invited there. There's maybe a Hennessy event and Beat FM have been invited there. There's there's a Nestle or Children's Day that's sponsored by Nestle and they're there. So when I then go to these events, I'm meeting the head of marketing, the head of comms, the head of this, the head of these companies. And I can then say, yes, you know me as Beat FM radio presenter. However, here's my show reel as a producer and here's what I've done. So I could shoot a TV commercial. I could do this. So as well as hitting the artists who would come to Beat FM, I also had more access to the corporate world as well.
Interesting. Sounds really strategic. So how long were you at Radio Continental for before you moved to Beat FM?
Less than a year. It was months. I was there for maybe like 8-9 months.
Okay. Then you moved to Beat FM. I think you were there for up to 26.
5 years?
About 5 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
31st of December 2015 was my last day.
I decided to focus on Film Factory. Was it an easy decision?
Yeah.
I see.
It was easy for me after 2013 when my dad passed away because I wanted to then live a more impactful life, one of legacy, one of fulfillment. And as much as I had fun with Beat FM, I didn't think it was my legacy. I knew I didn't want it to be my legacy. I knew I had much more to give the world and I wanted to focus on that. And I wanted to focus on what fulfilled me. And for me, if I was the actual artist who created the song, then that would have given me more fulfillment. I've got such a creative mind and I'm also very business minded that production was able to cater to both sides of me. I felt like radio was great for just giving me a platform, but not necessarily giving me purpose. And I felt at the time, Film Factory for me was more purposeful because at that time I had 20-something staff, putting their kids through school, putting a roof over their head. So knowing that my effort is directly impacting lives in a tangible, measurable way. And then apart from that, the inspiration that's immeasurable. People say, I didn't know that you were a female producer and I've seen all the stuff that you've done and you've worked for GE, you've done work for Ferrari, you've done work for Nescafe, you've done work for L'Oreal and Lancome and all these multinationals. And if you can do it, we want to do it too. You produced this amazing video for D'banj or Wizkid or Tiwa, whoever, and if you can do it, we can do it too. Or I saw your music video and it made me want to become a director or a dancer or a makeup artist or become a singer myself. That's something that translation of energy, because it's an idea that lived in the back of your head and you actually birthed it. I think that's a true reflection of being a creator and also being a reflection of our ultimate creator. So when I'm in that space, I feel very attuned to my purpose. That's why even with Bookends Africa, it's an idea that was in my head and I wasn't going to be satisfied until I birthed it and I saw it as a reality. It just needed to live outside of me. It felt almost like it was a bomb detonated underneath my skin and I wasn't going to be happy until I literally just let it explode outside of me, And that's how I've always felt. So, and that for me is things that make me feel more purposeful and more fulfilled. And after my dad passed away, you almost kind of like reevaluate your life. Like, okay, what is really of importance to me? If I was to pass away myself, God forbid, what would be my legacy left behind? How would I have impacted people? What would people say about me? And at that stage, what people knew me for was Beat FM, even though Monday to Friday I was running my production company and Saturday, Sunday I was doing radio. So I was working 7 days a week, but the only thing that people knew me for was in the public eye was radio. And I thought, I don't want my legacy to just be, oh, Fadé was a great radio presenter. Like, I know there's so much more that I've done. I know there's so much more that I'm yet to do. And I just didn't want that to be the box that I was fit into. So that's why I was just like, nope, it's time for me to focus not just on, not on popularity, but on purpose.
Impact as well. Okay. Whilst you were in the radio, were there any struggles or challenges? Well, aside the accent at the beginning?
No, not really.
It was the breeze?
I loved everyone. Yeah, radio was fun. I worked Saturday, Sunday, so I never came across anyone, like all the Monday to Friday staff, all the admin. Nobody was there. So it's literally like the security guard, the receptionist, and me. So it was really chill. So it was like my own playground. I'll play whatever music, and I love music. So I literally would just make sure I'm in comfortable clothes so I can dance. I'd put off the lights. I'd even have like a little strobe light because, of course, I own a production company, so I've got my own little lights and stuff. So from outside, you'd probably think there was a little nightclub going on. So I'd turn off the lights, I'd turn up the music to like the loudest it is, and I'm literally dancing, which is why people always loved my radio show because they're like, it's so high energy. I feel like I'm in a club, and I'm like, I'm literally dancing. My GM, Deji Awokoya, he came up to me one day. He's like, you know what? I've been watching you on CCTV for about a month and you never sit down. And I'm like, I know, because you hear the tunes that I'm playing. Like, your songs are so good. Like, why would I sit down? He's like, I'm the only radio presenter that would never sit down during their show. So I did a whole show on my feet. Like, I would never sit down. That's how, but I told you, like, I don't like sitting down anyways. Like, I'm energetic. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was a way to unwind because I love music. So working Monday to Friday, shooting productions. I never even saw radio as I'm going to work. It was more like, finally I get to listen to new songs in my own space and without distraction. So I get to hear the top songs and I get to listen with the best sound system. Why not? And I get to talk as well. And I love talking. So I get paid to do all of this. Shoot, why not? So yeah, it was a breeze. And then, the team, I think there was a time where it was just like the magic team. Like I just felt like radio at that time, BFM was untouchable. And we had such a great cohort of presenters from your Orica to Tools to Bemi to Maria, myself, Jimmy. There was like a whole bunch of us that were almost like the founding crew of Beat FM. And there was such a synergy between us because we were all genuinely friends. So even outside of work, we would hang out. But Beat FM had such a conducive environment that it was easy to bond. Because, when you're being sponsored by Hennessy and you get pretty much all the free Hennessy that you want, you tend to do some bonding.
Interesting.
So it was a fun environment. I'd probably say the only clash that I had, but everybody had a clash with, was the program's director, because he was a bit of an interesting character, I'd say. But yeah, it's common knowledge that everybody clashed with him at some point or the other. So I didn't see myself as an anomaly. So I didn't take it personal. I just realized it's his problem, not mine. And I just moved on. So I never let that affect me. But I had a breeze.
Great.
Absolutely loved it.
You mentioned
I actually still miss it.
Do you think you'd go back in the near future?
Nah.
Okay.
If I owned my own radio station, I'd probably be affiliated. But to go back and work for a radio station, I don't think so.
Do you see yourself owning a radio station?
Never say never.
Okay. You mentioned working with multinationals.
I never saw myself owning tech, so...
Fair point.
So I said I never saw myself owning a tech platform, so yeah, who knows?
Okay.
All right, what's up? What you saying? I said?
Yeah, you mentioned working with multinationals. Were some of them cold calls, or did you largely meet them at the events that BFM got invited to?
Majority of my clients were me going cold calling to the ad agencies. Well, I don't call it, cold visiting the ad agencies. So I do my research, find out the name of the creative director, the name of the MD or whoever, and I'll literally just walk in there and I'll just introduce myself and I say, I've got a 3:00 meeting with Mr. So-and-so. And I don't even know who they are. They don't know who I am. I have no meeting whatsoever, but I'll walk in there confidently and I'll sit there until they see me. And once they see me, I'll present my show reel, and 80%
Did it always
of the time
work?
I got them as a client.
They didn't validate if you had an appointment?
80% of the time it worked.
Interesting. Okay. I've learned something.
Yeah, because I mean, if you walk in somewhere confidently enough, and I think maybe I was also privileged because people knew who I was in society. You know, some of the times receptionists would even recognize me. So when they recognize me, they wouldn't even second guess that, oh, she's coming here randomly. So they'll go and be like, oh, Madam Fadé Ogunro from BTF. So by the time you say that, even if they're busy or whatever, even if they'll say, okay, she has to wait for a while, but eventually they were kind enough to give me an audience. And I was confident enough to know that the product that I have is better than what they currently use. So it's in their best interest to actually listen to me because I can add value and to them. And that's why it was an easy sell. So whenever they saw me and they saw the show reel, they were just like, wow, okay. So for example, I did that with DDB ad agency, and that's how I got the MTN job. Okay. So I used to shoot like a lot of MTN commercials. Same thing with Airtel. I got the Airtel contract for like a year where I shot all the Airtel commercials. Same thing with Insight. Insight were not so much cold calling because they're more like family friends. So, you know, of course, Uncle Biodun Shobanjo, Uncle Jimmy Awashika. I know Uncle Biodun's son, Tunde. We're very close friends. So we call ourselves media babies because we're second generation media activists, I should say. So with Insight, obviously, with my dad owning his own ad agency, people already knew my dad's name, and, you know, the owners of the ad agencies are already family friends. So that was also easy for me to say, hey, Uncle, who's the creative director? Imagine I call Uncle Biodun Shobanjo and I'm like, he's the creative director of Insight. Can you set up a meeting with him? Because I want to pitch my agency. Of course, he'll be like, okay. And they too would also grant us an audience because their chairman, of course, if your chairman says you should do something, you jump and you do it. So I'd also realized that with Nigeria, to be taken seriously, who introduces you is that positioning is very strong. It's very important.
Sure.
Because if a random model that has appeared in one of their TV commercials 3 years ago introduces you, the respect that you will get is different from when the chairman and the owner of the company introduces you.
Did you get any news?
Yeah. I mean, there's some people that were just like, you know, they're happy with the production houses that they already use. Some people say they can't afford us. Some people say, you know, we have different things, but either way, we were able to gain a lot of multinational and corporate clients.
Was the one you really wanted and you were sad when you didn't get it?
There was a competitive production company called Video Lounge that was run by South Africans. So if we'd pitch for the same job, because they had a lot of white people on their team, I found that some Nigerians would be skewered and biased to go towards them because there was this still what I call, you know, neocolonialism thinking where, you know, white people is still better. So they would still go for the white person who's offering half of what we are, but at double the price. So there were some times where it was frustrating where you could blatantly see that the only reason that you're picking these people is because they're white and you just want to feel, for lack of a better word, gingered. You want to like be able to impress your clients that, oh, we've got white people working on set. But even whatever they delivered, whether the quality was great or whether the creativity was innovative, that really didn't matter. And then there were some things that also were discouraging where it was, once again, it's not based off of our merit. It's based off of how much you're able to grease somebody's palms. So the decision makers, the assistant producers or the, you know, creative directors or whatever, you'd have to kind of take them out for drinks or the agency producers, because they would be the ones that would then say, oh, actually, we have another production house that we think would be better. But that's because they've already agreed under the table benefits for themselves from whatever the budget was. So it took me a while to kind of understand these little nuances. And once I was able to understand that, I was like, okay, cool. So now if I visit a new production house or a new ad agency, I'd find out who the key decision makers are. I'd try and take them out for lunch or for dinner, for drinks or whatever. Then outside of that, tell them that, basically have an agreement with them. Like, okay, so whatever jobs come up, whatever budget we have, I'll give you personally, whatever amount, X amount, blah, blah, blah. You're my guy. So really, it doesn't matter whatever work that I did, they would automatically just approve it. And unfortunately, we had to play that game because if you can't beat them, join them. Because we realized that we were losing out a lot of corporate jobs that we could do and we could offer. We were way better. Our treatments were way better. Ideas and our execution are way better. And we kept thinking, why are they picking the crappy people? And we realized these crappy people were giving them a kickback. And even though we were offering them the Ferrari, we didn't have an agreement with them. So they would in-house, there would be a cabal of them that would internally oppose us, not because they didn't like us, but just because we weren't greasing their palms. So once you learn to speak that language, once you learn how to dance and, once you learn how to dance, I don't stop moving. So, yeah.
Then
I always, like I said, I never see anything really as something as like a major setback or a failure. I just always go like, how can I learn from it?
When we return from this short break, we'll talk about Fadé's latest venture, Bookends Africa. Fadé will also talk about pitching successfully to investors and will also share fundraising tips. Stay with us. I'm Osheye and you're listening to Origins Africa podcast. Hi, dear listener. If you love our show, please leave us a review on iTunes and Apple Podcast. You can also send us a tweet or comment on Instagram at OriginsAF. We love to read from you. Nopes, not later. Yes, I read your mind. Do it now. Thanks a lot. Also click the subscribe button and share with a friend. Let's make a difference together, one origin story at a time. Catch our 1-to-1 newsletter where we share with you one lesson, 2 quotes, and 1 question from each episode published. You'll find it at originsafrica.substack.com. originsafrica.substack.com. If you like it, please click the like button, leave a comment, share with a friend, and subscribe. Also, you can now watch video snippets of some of our guest interviews. Simply go to Origins Africa Podcast on YouTube, Origins Africa Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like our videos, and share. Let's make a difference together, one origin story at a time. Hello there. Welcome back to Origins Africa Podcast. Now, in the course of Fadé's work in the media industry as a producer, she had experienced a lot of bottlenecks sourcing creatives across the continent. The process was time-consuming, expensive, and very inefficient.
I had the problem anyways. I knew what problem I was trying to solve, and I'd noticed this problem for quite a while, probably since like 2013, when I started filming more for corporates and I had to fly to different countries, and I'm trying to, be quite frugal with my expenses and try to make sure that my overheads, or keep my overheads low and OPEX low, and so we could have a better bottom line. I was just noticing that the media industry was quite fragmented across sub-Saharan Africa. And it just was a strain on the pre-production process. It was quite arduous, quite expensive. So I just kept thinking of ways that what could actually be done, what's the solution? And I had never come up with the name Bookends Africa itself, but I just always like, there needs to be some website where we can just book and find all these models. There needs to be places where we can just book and find locations and all the crew that we need. Just like I want to book a hotel, like there just needs to be some platform. Like, and I was always convinced that there was this platform already exists, because coming from a world of like Google where everything's already tech, for me, I was just like, why isn't this tech? You know, this whole process could be resolved with tech. But I never thought I would do it, and I never knew what it would, it was Bookends Africa. So I'd always had that. I always identified the issues, but I never like to focus on issues. I always like to focus on what the problems are, because that's just the way I've been drilled
Solutions,
and, built.
So in 2019, Fadé, still following her curiosity and towards solving the problem, segued into another sector entirely, technology, and launched her latest venture, Bookends Africa, a Pan-African on-demand digital marketplace that allows creatives, professionals and service providers from Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa at the moment to sell their services and skills online. What is particularly curious about Bookends Africa, as I said on the last episode, is that the name came to Fadé in a bizarre dream.
So I remember I was basically sleeping one day, and I had I thought my TV was on, and I heard a TV commercial. I fell asleep and I heard a TV commercial basically saying, BookendsAfrica.com, the number one online platform for, service providers across Africa, whether you need a model, a voiceover artist, a photographer, a videographer, you're looking for the perfect location to shoot, you need to hire crew, you need to hire equipment, whatever you need, go to BookendsAfrica.com. So I remember like literally jumping out of my sleep, like, oh, finally, this is a website that would be perfect for my production company, so that we can use them for, even we had a current job going on where I needed a location. And I was like, oh, great, let me go onto the website to see if I can find this location that I need. And literally, I woke up and my TV was off. And I thought, wait, did NEPA take light or what's going on? And I was like, okay, there's still lights. I don't know what's happening, but let me just check. I remember the name of the website, and I went bookensafrica.com, and the website's available to purchase. And I was like, okay, did I spell it wrong? Bookensafrica.com, bookends/africa.com, because I remember Bookends Africa, and I went through all different ways of Bookends Africa, and the domain didn't exist. So I thought, okay, do you know what? I'm just going to buy the domain name. And that was it. That was in 2016. I bought the domain name, did nothing with it. So between 2016 and 2018, every problem that I had as a producer, I'd literally just keep hearing that advert. If you go to bookensafrica.com, you'll be able to book your service providers, your makeup artist, your hairstylist, your this. And I was like, do you know what? This platform is actually the solution of all the frustrations that I face as a producer. To be able to, for my production company, to be able to make a quicker turnover, to be able to make more money, and to be able to work on more projects, to automate to the pre-production stage would actually be the solution. And Bookends Africa is that solution. So then I started doing a lot of research. Okay, is it a platform that's needed? Who will use it? How would it work? Blah, 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 blah. And then the more research I did, the more in demand I realized that it actually was. And then I just decided in 2019, I spoke to Sheson. I was like, you know what? I'm going to step away from Bookends, from Film Factory, and I need to go into Bookends Africa and just at least let it live outside of me, whether it fails or whether it thrives. I just won't be satisfied until literally I've birthed the idea. Because now it's like I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking, I'm eating, I'm breathing it, and it's now becoming annoying. And I feel like I'm just procrastinating. And I hate feeling like I'm in limbo. And I just need to know that I'm moving and progressing towards the birth of this platform. And everybody around me was just like, well, you've never really done tech as per se. Like, yes, you've worked for Google, but that was managing more like ad accounts, not necessarily building a platform from scratch. And I was like, yeah, but hey, somebody's got to do it. And that's literally my attitude to it. So
how did you...
That's where I felt like it was divinity, because...
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought it was divinity because the fact that I heard a whole TV commercial in my dream and the domain name didn't even exist or hadn't been taken, I just felt like that has to be divine. That's not something that's normal. And people were like, oh, maybe you dreamt it. I was like, no. It's like, when you fall asleep with your TV on And even though you're sleeping, you can still hear your TV. That's how clear it was. It was something outside of me. I know what a dream is. A dream is internal, and you can wake up and you can be like, oh, I remember dreaming about something. This wasn't the dreaming. This was me jolted out of my sleep because I was hearing a TV commercial going on. And the fact that the TV wasn't even on, and the fact that the domain name didn't exist, I felt like, okay, this is definitely God, it was definitely God speaking to me.
And over the last 3 years, Fadé has dedicated her life to building this innovative tech-enabled solution that she believes will shape Africa's workforce. The platform currently has more than 85,000 users. But what was the journey like of building Bookends Africa?
I just did a lot of research. I read a lot. I studied a lot. I literally spent about 9 months just studying before I did anything. So I literally say that I've got a PhD from the University of YouTube. I literally consume YouTube day and night, and I was literally studying Harvard University, all the entrepreneurship videos they have, Caltech, MIT, Yale, Stanford, all the top universities, any courses that they had to do with entrepreneurship, with startups, with business, with everything. I would just consume it. So by the time I was done watching and reading, I literally had got my business plan together. I had my business model together. I had my pitch deck together, all from online research. And apart from that, I was also doing qualitative research by going to media agencies and production houses and asking them if they would find such a platform useful and what they would use it for, or what would be a deterrent from them to use it. And then I asked, because I already have a large database of service providers that I've worked with through my production company. So if it's models, I have literally thousands of models at my fingertips. I've got lots of voiceover artists, lots of videographers, photographers. So that was already a network that was a low-hanging fruit. So I just literally send a bulk email to everyone with maybe like a survey monkey and say, would you sign up to a platform? What problems do you face right now as a makeup artist? Why don't you like working with agencies? Or how can you transition from being a bridal makeup artist to working on a TV commercial? Do you find that there's a lack of access to that market, or things like that? So I was just doing a lot of research. And then when I basically got enough answers, I was like, okay, this is something that's definitely going to appeal to this segment of people and this segment and that segment. And I was able to just fine tune the idea. And then in a more practical sense, once again, with my network, I have a really close friend called Otoyede. He's like a really close family friend. He's almost like a brother, to be honest. So he basically owns his own company, builds websites and apps. So I was then able to speak to him on a brother level and say, help me build my MVP, my minimum viable product, which is like a basic, very, very basic version of the website, just so something is live. So I could be able to take it to investors and raise money, and then just show that it's not just it's not just a good business idea, but it's actually a viable business because we're generating revenue. So he helped me build a very basic website. I paid him off for that. I paid him off in some money, and I told him when I raise funds, I'll be able to pay him off his balance, and he was fine with that because he had faith in me. So in good faith, he helped me build my website. I was able to get an angel investor. I put some money in myself. I put about $40,000 into it. My angel investor put in about $80,000. By the time the MVP was done and we already started generating revenue. So before I even raised any funds, I had already had about another maybe I think $30,000 already of business already go through within the first few months. Right. So I was then able to take these figures to the investors, and then that was then when I then raised $350,000 in August 2019 to then be able to go full blown and have a proper great website and an app that's available in Nigeria, South Africa, and Kenya. And we did that in November 2019. So we officially launched in November 2019.
Great. And from then to now.
But there were a lot of no's. I mean, before I got 3 yeses, I got 3 yeses from investors in 1 week. And prior to that, I'd probably had about 30 no's. So once again, those no's were like, you're pitching. But the thing is, you live and you learn. Because it's a new industry, I might be pitching to somebody who's only interested in investing in agriculture. and I'm there pitching to them about a lifestyle media platform. So it's not necessarily like that my idea wasn't viable or interested. It's just the person might be sector agnostic, and I haven't done my research on who the venture capital is. So I'm not realizing that even though it's a good idea, I'm wasting my time because they're not going to give me their funds because that's not where their expertise lies. But these are the things that you learn in the industry. So you then, and this is the sort of information that I pass on to new generation women who are trying to break into tech and also trying to raise money. One of the things that I said that I wasted a lot of time was just any event that I hear that there's a VC, I will jump on it and I'll run and I'll start pitching, but not realizing that I'm pitching to, I don't know, some people who are just interested in whatever industry, a banking app. So 30 no's. And after 30 no's in 1 week, I got 3 yeses, and I was then had to go back to each of the investors that gave me 3 yeses. Okay, I've gotten this opportunity. How can you match it? So I was able to play them off with each other and get a good deal, So it happens, all happens in good time. But that's what, like I said, I knew that I eventually was going to walk. So, and all the no's were me trying to walk, but as I'm crawling, I'm falling over and stumbling, which is fine.
Did you get disappointed?
Because it's just part of the process of getting to walk.
Or did you get, what's the word? Were there times you wanted to quit? Like it wasn't going to work before you got the yeses?
No, not really. Because every time I got a no, I'd always go back to the investor or to the person that said no, and they'll say and ask why. So the first times that I was trying to pitch, when I got majority of the no's, was when my MVP wasn't even ready. So a lot of the people would say, yes, we've seen your business plan, your business model, everything looks great, but we actually want to see a live product. So for me, it was a bit of the chicken and the egg, because I was like, I'm trying to raise money so that I can give you a live product, but you don't want to give me money until you see the live product. So that was what was frustrating. Not necessarily that they were saying no. They never said no that it wasn't a good idea. They never said no that it wasn't a good business. Because even without a website, I was still making money offline just based on the strength of the database that I had and the network that I had. So I was able to show that even offline, without it being a technical business, a tech solution business, I was generating revenue. Then when I was able to do my MVP and still also prove that as a tech platform, it's also generating revenue, that was when I then started getting all the yeses. So that's why, because as soon as I was getting a no, I'd go back to everyone and go, okay, why did you tell me no? Oh, you want to invest in agriculture. It's not your area of expertise. Got it. Why did you tell me no? Okay, you like the idea, but you want to see a website that's working. Got it. You want to tell me? So everybody's answer was valid, and when it was never to do with the content.
Yeah, okay.
So that was why I would say I wasn't really discouraged. I just thought, okay, how can I overcome this so the next person tells me yes?
Okay. Aside finance, were there any other challenges in setting up Bookends Africa?
Yeah, because I'm a non-techie going into a techie space, so just navigating in that new industry, there's just going to be some, just I won't necessarily call them challenges, but just when you're just in a different environment, you just kind of have to find your feet and find your own tribe almost. So who can I cling on to or hang on to and, become my friend? Somebody that, in media, I already had, whether it's my Beat FM clique, I already had this kind of crew. I already had some people in the production houses or ad agencies that I can go and have drinks with. But I literally had nobody in tech. So if I had any questions, who do I turn to ask? So that's where my biggest challenge was. So I just decided to gate crash any tech event. So Tech Point would have a conference and I'll just get myself a ticket and go by myself because I didn't even have any friends to go to these events with. So I end up going to like a Tech Point event. I'll go to, Access Bank have their Disruptor, African FinTech Foundry Disruptor conference. I'll buy a ticket and I'll go there and I'll network by myself, just to see if I can get people who would be on my side or build my tribe, build thought leaders, build industry people that can give me industry insights. I'd call the owners of like Tech Cabal and I'll say, introduce myself and say I want to take them out for dinner, or I'd buy lunch and I'll just go to the office of Paga and I'll just say, hey, I've heard there's a CEO here, the CEO is CFO, here's some flowers and here's lunch. Let's do lunch together. And then I'll just buy them lunch and just start a conversation with them that way. So I really kind of bulldozed my way. into the industry. Like, oh, you don't know me? You're going to get to know me. by force. So yeah, that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I had, was finding a trustworthy or a reliable network that I was comfortable with. Especially because women in the industry are not that popular.
Interesting. Now, as usual, we asked Fadé, looking back through the years, what should ascribe her success to? Her hard work, skills and talents, or luck?
In the words of, is it Daniel Coyle, who wrote the book Talent is Overrated? Definitely, I don't subscribe success to talent. I think hard work is the key to it all. You've got the rule of 10,000 hours, like David Beckham. If you stand at a football pitch for 10,000 hours in your life trying to score a goal, guaranteed you'll be one of the best strikers in the world. If you put enough time into something, you become a specialist at it. So that, with the bit of nurture and just the way my upbringing set me apart from everybody else here, and I'm in a patriarchal society, I still feel like my mindset, not seeing gender, not seeing color, not seeing race, not seeing any of these typical biases that women would ascribe to themselves and see themselves as weaker or see themselves as lesser than. I've never seen myself as that. So I think that mindset is actually the key to my success, because I've never been able to see myself. I've envisioned myself already successful. It's like saying not seeing yourself being able to walk. I don't see that. I literally can't envision that. So even if in my journey I fall over, that's fine, but I still see that I'm going to be able to walk. But I find that the mindset of the typical woman, or the typical, especially if I'm going to be an entrepreneur here, is I've got to limit myself to just crawling, because walking is a man's world. And I don't even see that. I just see whatever if you call it a man's world, a woman's world, a dog's world, all I see is I see myself in that. I see myself walking with my head strong, surviving and thriving. And I don't know how to see myself other than anything like that. So for me, mindset is the greatest attribute to mindset and hard work. And of course, God's love, God's unmerited favor, because he has opened doors that, I wouldn't have been able to do myself. So I think that that's the cocktail for success.
On Fadé's advice to listeners.
My advice to listeners is you always have to learn. Like, especially if you're moving into a new industry, you have to be quite strategic with the way you move and the decisions that you make. Find a mentor, find somebody who's already opened doors in that space, or somebody who's already experienced in that field, in that industry. Lean on them as much as possible. Get them to open doors for you, depending on the market that you're in. But Nigeria, once again, is very, they're still quite traditional in terms of, it's like who's your family, who do you know, that's kind of a society. And if you understand that this is the society that you're in, you need to play to their strengths as well, and not be too rigid in trying to enforce your own ways. So it's just literally always been strategic. Who can you leverage off of? How can you add value? I feel like once you always position yourself to showcase the value that you can add, or the solutions and how your solution is helping other people, once you focus on that, then I feel like you'll attract the right people. But if you don't highlight what the value is, and you just constantly, especially if you're trying to raise funds and you're just trying to tell them that you want their money, VCs are used to people trying to ask them for funding. So you really need to showcase and personalize your solution to their lives. So even when I'm pitching, if I see it's a group of men that I'm pitching to, and I'm talking about Bookends Africa, I'd start off my pitch saying, how many of you guys have been to Kenya in the last 1 year? Great. So can you guys open up your phones and go into a website or an app, if you have one, and book a barber right now? You imagine you're traveling there tomorrow and you want a haircut when you arrive at your hotel. Can you book a barber right now? And tell me how much it costs. Tell me how many jobs they've done in the past week, all of that. And then they'll all kind of like realize that, wait, I haven't been able to do that. And I'm like, have you been in a position where you needed a barber, or you needed, this? And they're like, yeah, all the time. And I'm like, exactly. That's what Bookends Africa does. All the service providers that you need are now at your fingertips, and you can see and book them just like you book a hotel. Simple. If I'm then speaking to a woman, I'll then go, the last owambe that you went to, or the last wedding that you went to, you just needed somebody to quickly tie your gilly. How were you able to find them? Wouldn't it be easy if you could just find somebody to just come to your house right now? Like, yeah, that's amazing. So I tailored my pitch. I'll do research to see who am I speaking to. Then also, you don't also want to waste time. Whoever you're pitching to, find out how many rounds they've invested in, the industry that they invested in, how many exits they've invested in. If they've even invested in other companies, try and find the CEOs of those companies and then ask, how is this relationship with this investor? Because it's a marriage. A lot of entrepreneurs believe that the venture capitalists are there to pick them. And when they've been picked, their life has been made. No, it's a two-way thing. You also need to pick the venture capitalists because they're literally like your wife or your husband. They're literally your partner for a duration of time where all decisions you have to make together. So you need to make sure that your values and integrity are actually aligned beyond your financial goals. So a lot of you don't want to get into bed with somebody that you fall out with, or you realize that you're not aligned with your values. So that's why that's the advice that I'd give is research your VCs as much as possible, as much as you can. And especially if you're a woman, you are a queen, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Lift your head up and advance onwards and upwards fearlessly.
Fadé's aspiration for Bookends Africa is to scale to 15 to 20 African countries in the next 5 to 10 years, 3 million active users in 3 to 5 years with more professions, as well as be the preferred digital work platform in Africa. If you are a creative, service provider, and professional, you should go to bookensafrica.com to sign up now. That's Fadé Ogunro. She's the founder and CEO of Bookends Africa, as well as the co-founder of Film Factory. Join us next time as we have a chat with Kemi Shonubi. She's the Director of People, Culture, Experience and Operations at TVC Communications. Thank you for listening to our show this week. If you liked it, do leave us a review, a comment, and share with your friends. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend and to tell another friend. We would also love to read from you, so please do send us a tweet or leave a comment on Instagram at OriginsAF. You can also write to us at originsafricapodcast@gmail.com. Remember, do subscribe at wherever you get your podcast: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, amongst others. Catch our 1-to-1 newsletter where we share with you one lesson, 2 quotes, and 1 question from each episode published. You'll find it at originsafrica.substack.com. originsafrica.substack.com. And of course, if you like it, please click the like button, leave a comment, share with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm Oshaya, and you've been listening to Origins Africa Podcast. Bye for now.
My father told me life is not a bed of roses. You gotta put your way into the plow, do the work to smell the roses. Don't back down. Whatever you do, don't back down. When things get tight, keep the drive, keep the faith, stay in the fight. Draw strength from the motherland, let our heroes hold your hand. You are the answer, friend. Origins out here, the tales of those before you. Let their stories motivate you. What you